Hello, everybody, and welcome to the football edition of Krown Countdown U in the off-season. This is the February edition as we take the best of our 4 shows in February and put it into one show for our viewers in Ontario on Cable 14 and Cogeco stations in Windsor and Kingston. This is what we have coming up for you this afternoon. We have Danny Machocha, the head coach of the Montreal Carabins. Gregg Marshall, the head coach of the Western Mustangs. The new head coach of the Guelph Griffins, Kevin McNeil. And Stefan Patazik, the head coach of the McMaster Marauders. That's nearly every powerhouse coach in the nation for you, so let's get right to it. Out of the chute, let's go to AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. The Team Canada U19 team pulled off wins before at this International Bowl, but they were in tough against a USA team loaded with D1 commits on their home turf, playing in the house that Jerry built. Solid gathering of over 5,000 on hand in Arlington. The scoreboard wasn't pretty, but this guy was for Canada. UBC defensive back Stavros Katsantonis with a pick, had a breakup too. Canada was down 6-0 at the half, but the USA was too much in the second. It was a better story for Canada in the futures games. Brampton's Devontae Stanley with some of his 144 yards on the ground, followed up by Mason Nyhus of Regina connecting with Red Deer's Ben Pasiuk to the 1. So Nyhus does the rest. Canada take a 28-0 lead en route to a comfortable W. The first and only head coach to win a Grey Cup and a Vanier Cup is Danny Machocha of the Montreal Carabins. We caught up with Coach M earlier, and to no one's surprise, he is picking the Carolina Panthers in the Super Bowl with Carbs grad David Foucault on the roster. Danny, this must give you the chance to feel like a proud papa, seeing that David Foucault was on the roster of the Carolina Panthers as they head towards the Super Bowl as NFC champions. How proud are you that someone on your roster is now on a Super Bowl team representing the UDM and the CIS?
Well, I mean, it's really exciting for us to see him participate in this upcoming Super Bowl that's taking place next Sunday. I've had the opportunity to speak to him here over the last few weeks. You need to understand that when I took over the program here at the University of Montreal, David was a defensive lineman who we had a little chat. We sat down and discussed the opportunity of him switching sides and coming to the offensive side of the football, and that's something that he wanted to do because he thought he'd have a future doing so, and it's clearly paid dividends for him in the last over the last 3 years at the University of Montreal. He was drafted in the first round, the 4th overall, if I'm not mistaken, by the Montreal Alouettes, and then he signed a free agent contract with the Carolina Panthers. I think he started 5 games, if I'm not mistaken, and I think he's played 1 game for them this year. But this is very exciting for us, very gratifying, and we're excited for David. He's done it the old-fashioned way through a lot of hard work, and the future is really bright for David.
Now on the field at quarterback, Gabby Cousineau has played out his 5th year, but Ugo Henderson has been waiting in the wings for 2 years. Where is Henderson in terms of his development right now?
Well, Ugo is in 3rd year here at the University of Montreal. In my humble opinion, I think he's ahead of where Gab was in his 3rd year. Don't forget, he was a former MVP of the CIGEP League here in Quebec. He's got a great understanding of what we're doing offensively. He brings another dimension to the game that maybe Gab didn't bring, is that he's got the ability to make some plays with his feet. He doesn't have Gab's arm strength, but he can definitely make things happen once he gets flushed out of the pocket.
What is your opinion on how your program's success reset and perhaps benefited the whole conference?
Well, I think it just makes for a healthier conference. I think at any point in time when the same team is winning over and over, if I'm not mistaken, correct me here, Jim, I think they won like 11 consecutive, and you haven't lost a home game since September of 2004, and you got on a run of 70 consecutive games. I don't know if that's a dynasty. I look at that more as maybe a potential problem in the conference. And I think we've become a viable option now for a lot of kids, especially, they realize that they don't have to go to Quebec City if they want to win a championship. They can do it, through the University of Montreal.
During the offseason, Danny, I ask every coach this. In your mind, what is the biggest challenge facing CIS football in 2016?
Well, I think one word that comes to mind is probably transparency. I know there's been a lot of discussion regarding, recruiting practices, how everybody operates. I think compliance. I think every institution should have a compliance officer and make sure that things are done the way they're supposed to be done. Unfortunately, we fall into the argument or the conversation of resources, a shortage of resources. At some point in time, if we want to be viable and we want to give everybody a fair and equal opportunity to compete on a particular stage, then I think there needs to be compliance, and I think it should come from the top, and hopefully some of this, hopefully some of these leaders will step up and lead, because I think it's such a tremendous product. I think we've got so much more to offer, and it would be a shame if we don't maximize our potential.
The CFL and our partners at Football Canada want to make sure we keep growing, promoting, and investing in a safe game. Hey! Football Canada now requires all amateur coaches to be safe contact trained by 2017. By creating a standard of safety for all in our football community, we're making an already great game even better. Make sure your youth coach is safe contact trained, because making a safe game means making a better game.
Highly touted recruit Sean Robinson is no longer a Mountie, riding off to the capital as a transfer to the Carleton Ravens. The 6-foot, 240-pound defensive lineman led the nation in 2015 with 17.5 tackles for loss and was a 2014 CFC Top 100 recruit. Couple of interconference games to tell you about. Laval has chosen, and they have asked, and they will host the Carleton Ravens in the premier non-conference game of the year in Quebec City in August. As for the RSEQ champion Montreal Carabins, they will host the Laurier Golden Hawks at Sepson. Last year, the Hawks traveled to Saskatoon, where they lost to the Saskatchewan Huskies. Meanwhile, there was a smooth changeover with the defending OUA champions in Guelph as the Griffins promoted defensive coordinator Kevin McNeil to head coach after Stu Lang stepped aside. I asked Coach Mack about that changeover and if Lang will still be actively involved in the program. So, Kevin, from the outside looking in, it looked like there was a pretty smooth transition in Guelph. You've still got the support staff in place. It looked like it was a decision that Stu made probably sometime in the season, and he had a transition plan. Was that the case?
Yeah, Stu definitely wasn't hiding the fact that this was going to be his last season to the inner circle, and we really wanted to win this one for him and ensure his legacy as head coach. And we knew he'd step up into more of an advisory role and kind of still be a big part of this program moving forward. So we're excited to continue to move on, with what he's created and continue, the kind of excellence that he's kind of given us, for this program.
Yeah, we can talk about excellence. I know I visited out there about a year and a half ago to the facility. He's put a lot into facilities for you guys as a legacy item. Tell me how important it was that Stu made that investment in your program, and is he going to be in the type of position with the Griffins to continue to give support to the program?
Well, the big project that we're actually really excited for, we're breaking ground any day now, is our new pavilion. It's an $8 million football operations pavilion with a brand new locker room that's going to be close to 4,000 square feet. And, we got, 6 new meeting rooms for our team and new coaches' offices. So that new pavilion, the Football Operations Center, is going to be built in 2016, and we're extremely excited for that. There's already talks about potentially getting stands on the other side of the field. So there's lots of stuff happening, and we're excited about the future in terms of what we're doing. The key thing that Stu has taught us is that we're not going to be satisfied. We're going to continue to develop and grow our product, and we're not. The Yates Cup isn't a finish. It is the starting of a lot more stuff to come.
I got to ask you this question because there was a big debate about it online, and that's championship rings. The Griffins handed out championship rings for the Yates Cup. I think it's a great idea. I think winning your conference means almost as much as a national championship. These are the guys that you're banging heads against all through the course of the season. And it's also a great calling card for future donors and alumni to rally around at a 10th anniversary or a 20th anniversary. Can you understand, though, some of the resistance out there for a conference championship ring?
Well, you can count me as part of the resistance. And I wasn't a big fan of it. I have a national championship ring with 2005 Laurier. And I've never gotten a Yates Cup ring and won several Yates Cups, at Laurier. So it was kind of a new thing for me. And I have to tell you, once I saw the ring and, kind of listened to Stu and his reasons why, I think it's a great thing. I mean, it's something for our kids to treasure. It's a big deal for our university. The 4th time our school's won a Yates Cup, so it is important for us, and I'm happy he went ahead and made that decision.
Kevin, really appreciate you taking the time out in Guelph. I know you've been a busy guy, and the changeover to being a head coach and being involved in the U19 team with Team Canada. Thanks very much for your time.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much.
Quarterback Will Finch's retirement with a year left on his clock punctuated, highlighted, and underlined the season of transition 2016 will be for the Western Mustangs. We caught up with head coach Gregg Marshall on Monday and talked about the challenge of change.
It's very difficult, Jim. And I think one of the things is that when Will came out of high school, he was one of the most highly recruited student athletes to come out in a long time. So everyone knew Will Finch, and all the quarterbacks know of him. And so not easy for us to recruit another quarterback when Will was in first, second, even in third year. We were fortunate that with Stevenson Bone, he came, his dad was a coach here, and he wanted to come here. And we didn't, actively recruit him. He wanted to come here because his dad was coaching. So we're fortunate to get Stevenson. We had another quarterback, Josh Beach, who's graduating, who was in the mix last year. He basically was a receiver, and we turned him into a quarterback because it was not easy recruiting behind Will Finch. And, I think that last year was different. Last year we brought in, several good young quarterbacks thinking that, they had a couple years to develop before Will graduated. But with Will graduating now and deciding not to play, those players are going to, be forced to step up a lot earlier.
But for that group of young quarterbacks behind Stevenson Bone, they must be energized by having the calendar of opportunity moved up by a year. What's the response around there? They must be watching video, and they must be really active around the program.
Absolutely. I think that when and we've known for a while. I talked to Will about his decision back before Christmas, and we said to give it some time. But I think a lot of players in our team knew that this was happening, and the young players are out throwing over at the arena, on the track, anywhere. We don't have the nice weather like you do out there, so we have to find bits and pieces and hallways to throw the football. But they're making do and getting out there as best they can.
What's the biggest challenge in 2016 for CIS football in your mind?
Well, I think it's the disparity amongst the teams that are playing right now, and that it is being addressed, that the schools are taking that step to be competitive, certainly in Ontario. And I think one of the things that we've looked at and that we've been dealing with for the last 2 or 3 years is the recruiting challenges. And in order to make it fair for all schools to have an opportunity to recruit. We have to make sure that there's a set of guidelines, to govern recruiting. And not that we didn't have those before, they just needed to be updated. And, we had a committee. I was on it with Coach Constantine and Coach Nill and Coach Jeffries and Coach Samara. We've vetted it through a big leadership meeting we had last year in Ottawa, where we had all the athletic directors, all the football coaches from across the country looking at this new recruiting package. So it looks, it's I believe now that the CIS is buying into it. We've agreed to it. They've signed off on it. The CIS is looking at putting something in place like a clearinghouse that student athletes would limit the number of official visits and somehow try to control the costs so that all the schools across the country can compete effectively.
Gregg, as always, thanks for joining us. Appreciate the time.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
The CFL and our partners at Football Canada want to make sure we keep growing, promoting, and investing in a safe game. Football Canada now requires all amateur coaches to be safe contact trained by 2017. By creating a standard of safety for all in our football community, we're making an already great game even better. Make sure your youth coach is safe contact trained, because making a safe game means making a better game.
Few coaches have had more success over the last 5 years in this country than Stefan Patazic, the boss with the McMaster Marauders. Mac was in rebuilding mode in 2015, but are they positioned to pop it up into a new gear in 2016? Steph, thanks for joining us. I guess my first question out of the chute is, what sort of advice would you have for Kevin McNeil, kind of up the road, or I guess over to the side from Hamilton over in Guelph, in terms of taking a head coaching job and balancing family with it? I know you've got a young family, and I also know that in terms of being a head coach, you have to be chief cook and bottle washer. There are so many things that you have to do, and it can be an all-consuming job. How do you balance all of that?
That's a good question. That's not an exact science. I think the key is football time and family time. If you try to keep them separate, there isn't enough time. And so you got to integrate them and overlap them. One of the strengths of having this job is watching my kids grow up on this campus and see all the talented, smart, driven student athletes at McMaster, and I love it. And so having my kids on this campus and again, family time and football time overlapping, and then surround yourself with good people. If you have to be the one stirring the pot all the time, you are not going to last in this profession, and you need to surround yourself with people you believe in and that also believe in you, and that's the only way to reach your full potential. And Kev, it's okay if Guelph loses once or twice. That won't be the end of the world.
With Will Finch deciding to retire and not use his fifth year down at Western, you probably have the best quarterback in the OUA right now in Asher Hastings. I got two questions about Hastings and your program. First of all, just how far can he take your offense? And the second thing is, do you think his success changes the dynamic for recruiting from the OUA to the CJFL, and specifically the BCFC and the PFC? Do you think they take a look at you a little bit differently now, and are you taking a look at them a little bit differently?
I think a little bit of both, for sure. The traction of the success Asher has had everywhere he's been, and demonstrating that we've been able to help nurture his gift and grow it a little bit. I mean, 31 touchdown passes in 8 games is the best anyone's ever done in the CIS. He's had a pretty good couple of years at McMaster. And so I hope they see that traction and see, I didn't create him, but I've certainly helped develop and nurture him. He's a pretty driven kid, and he was going to be successful wherever he went. But that's a pretty special year he's put together. And then for us, all our recruiting, especially out of province, because there's a distance and there's some challenges there, seeing what Asher can do and seeing that the film and the context that it directly applies to us in the OUA makes us way more interested in some of our out-of-province opportunities, whether it's CIS or otherwise, or high school or otherwise. And to be a national competitive program, you got to look at all avenues in this recruiting environment.
Talk to me about what it's like working for a former NBA general manager in Glenn Grunwald. I know as a head coach, you're also part manager. What has he been able to share with you that's made your job easier?
I think one of the key ones is you'd never know that he's been an NBA GM, brought Vince Carter to Canada. You'd never know that he won an NCAA Division I basketball championship with Isaiah Thomas, and he's a humble, hardworking, bright man. You know all those things. He's very shy or slow to tell you about any of them. You got to squeeze them out of him because they're cool stories. And so watching how he carries himself in every room and the diligence towards our program and genuinely caring about our student athletes is phenomenal. I will say this, I'm glad he's got a basketball background, because his Rolodex of basketball coaches and people is unbelievable. That would make me nervous if I was running a basketball program.
Super. Thanks very much. Thanks for taking the time out, Steph. It's always good to catch up with you.
Thanks for the invite. Talk to you soon.
The worst-kept secret in CIS football was made official late last week as UBC's defensive coordinator James Colsey III was unveiled as the new head coach of the beleaguered St. Mary's Huskies program. SMU went 0-8 last year, and the former national champion cornerback with the Florida State Seminoles will certainly have his work cut out for him. We're down to 2 finalists in Regina for the vacant head coaching job with the Regina Rams, but it could have been 4. Stephen Bryce and Sheldon Gray are the finalists in the running, but both Regina Thunder boss Scott McCauley and UBC special teams and recruiting coordinator Paul Orazietti removed their names from the list. McCauley cited his ability to balance his job with Pfizer Canada with his CJFL job, while Orazietti expressed concerns about moving a family with kids in senior high school. Expect an announcement hopefully by next week. Thanks for joining us for the February edition of Krown Countdown U. This is where you can see the full interviews on our social media channels, and we look forward to talking to you next month from the KCU studios.